and welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick with the City of Hampton, and today we are going to talk you into joining a program to help your family and your neighbors during a disaster. My guests are from Emergency Management, Sara, Ruch, and Pete Sommer. And Pete, I want to say you were with Emergency Management here in Hampton a while back.
Yes.
And remained in the field.
Yes.
You were here during Isabel.
I was.
In most of our lifetimes, that is the biggest natural disaster weather problem that we've had. And it could happen again.
Right.
And that was a time when there was widespread power outages and trees down, and the city really couldn't be everywhere at the moment that happened. Right. So that's why we have CERT,
yes,
which stands for
Community Emergency Response Team.
So what we ask people to do is to go out and help in their immediate neighborhood,
Yeah.
right?
Well, the goal is you come, you take the CERT training, you learn how to get yourself prepared. So the goal is, you make sure that you're okay first, and then obviously you help your family because you want to make sure that your family's safe. Mm-hmm. And then you go and, help your neighborhood along with other CERT team members that are in your neighborhood. So it's preparing yourself, preparing your family, and checking on your family, obviously, if something happens, and then going out into the neighborhood. So.
And I think most of us have a desire to help our neighbors in a disaster, but we don't know where to start.
Right.
And that's exactly why CERT training is so important for people to come and get a little taste of each segment. And as you mentioned before, Pete has been doing this for a long time, and he was our contractor. He's our contractor for our CERT program. And he can go into more of the exact skill set that you will be taught during the CERT course.
Okay. Yeah, and there's basically 9 modules or 8 modules to it, and then the 9th module is a final practical. We're putting all that skill set together. And we start with just general preparedness. So we talk about, what do you do at home? What do you have, and in this area, one of the things that we stress is, do you have an emergency kit at home? Okay, how prepared are you?
Sarah tells us that all the time.
That's right.
I do. I've been here a couple times and said that.
And then we go through what should be in that kit.
Yeah.
And it really depends on the individual. It depends on whether you have small children at home. It depends whether you have elderly. It depends whether you have pets or you have any kind of medical issue. So the kits are pretty basic, but they're also very individualized. So we have to, we go through that and explain that. And then we talk about fire suppression. We talk on how to put out a fire. And we give them experience using a fire extinguisher.
See, that's the thing. I have 2 fire extinguishers. I know where they are. I have never pulled that trigger.
Yeah.
And confident, giving people confidence is a huge part of it.
Yeah.
So they get that experience just in that class of doing that fire extinguisher for the first time. It's like, wow, that's not so bad.
That's my favorite part of the class, to be quite honest.
Really?
I mean, there's a lot to learn there, but I can honestly say that I can use that again in my house. And it's one of those things of you have the fire extinguisher sitting around your house, but I don't ever think of using it because I don't want to replace it or buy a new one. I'm sorry.
And mine's 20 years old. I don't know if it's even working anymore. It's been there since I moved in.
Yeah, you do want to check those things, obviously.
Right,
the fire department can give you more information on that. But that's what I like. And I feel way more comfortable now with a fire extinguisher. So that's one of the courses, and it's hands-on training. So.
And then we go into what we call light search and rescue. And that's basically, is it safe to go into a house and look for somebody? If you have a neighbor that may be in a house that has some damage, is it safe for you to go in that or not? So we give them some assessment tools to determine if it is, or then they should go in and help. If not, then how do we identify an area that may be safe to go in? So it's not going into the front door because it's the closest. It may be going into another area, or it may be having those people come out to you or get to a place that's safe for both of you to be able to extract them. And then we go through medical operations, and we go through disaster medical operations. So it's that triage, it's that stop the bleeding, treating for shock, and clearing the airways. So it's that basic stuff that we want to do. It's not a first aid course, but it is disaster disaster medical. And then the other section of that is really getting into triage and trying to help individuals to understand that if the fire department or a large scale event, what can we as citizens do to assist the city? And that's the whole CERT program, is providing extra hands to the city when they need it. So when they call on that, we have a skill set, we have people that are trained and ready to help. And then after the medical piece, we go into disaster psychology. We talk about what the disaster is and how you recover from that. And there are major disasters that people are not going to recover from. We know that. We saw after Isabel that the emotional impact of Isabel, and then the next time it rained, and it's like, okay, I'm not going to do this again. I was without power for 14 days.
Yeah,
and,
exactly. My parents were like that. They live in Gloucester, and their house was decimated in the tornadoes. Mom was like freaky. Every time there would be a bad storm, if they were predicting, I mean, it's a hard thing.
Yeah.
Once and didn't initially want to move back in, afraid of that location. But the neighbors were so good to them during that disaster.
So you get a little bit of background on that, and they go into terrorism a little bit, and
more terrorism awareness, just letting people know what to look for, and that see something, say something. That if there's something out of place, the city really does need you to let people know that there's something, that's unusual, and then leave it to the first responders to be able to check to make sure that it's okay.
And I know, the goal is you want to get the first responders in to do the heavy lifting. But there's a period of time when they can't get in. I mean, I remember in the Gloucester tornado, the roads were blocked.
Yes.
And they couldn't get my parents out to the hospital. They couldn't get in to get them. And what do you do in that circumstance? During Isabel, it was so widespread that they couldn't be everywhere. And so helping to figure out where the most critical needs are and helping to, get people in.
Yeah, and that's also another thing that the CERT team members do, is they report back to our emergency operations center, and they let us know, how's this neighborhood doing? Because maybe it's just a tree that's blocking the road, but the rest of the houses are relatively fine. It's just you can't get in. So then we can say, okay, well, there's this other road over here that needs to have a tree cleared first because someone, has some sort of issue.
There's a tree on a house, or they think there's people inside, and you're going to go
and
where
it's harder hit. So they also help us, give feedback as into what's going on in that neighborhood when we might not be able to get it otherwise, because they live in the neighborhoods. And that's the same thing with the See Something, Say Something, is that you're there every day. You know what's normal in your neighborhood. If there's someone odd, coming around or whatever, and to make sure that you report those things, because it really does take a community in order to make the city better. So,
And I remember my neighborhood was also a year after my parents lost their house. The tornado stopped actually at my backyard. My neighbor's my neighbor's house was condemned, but mine was not. But you still couldn't get out of the neighborhood, and I got called in to the city, and I couldn't get in. They had to send the fire department for me, but. People were knocking on doors and saying, are you okay? I mean, there's a lot of older people in my neighborhood that we had to go check on, and down wires everywhere. And with no training, I don't know which wires are the cable, which is pretty darn safe, and which wires are live electrical wires. And, people don't understand hazards. So I'm going to say, maybe the prime motivation for doing this is to take care of your own self and your own family first. Yes, we want you to give back to your neighbors, but you learn a lot. I mean, and it's free.
It is free. That's the best part, is we have a federally funded grant that pays for the training. So in the city of Hampton, you take and complete the course, and you will end up with your CERT backpack.
So not only is it free, you get cool swag.
You
that is really
get cool
useful
stuff. Yes, and it also, obviously the CERT bag is meant for, CERT team and CERT response.
Right, because you're going to carry it with you when you're knocking on those doors.
Yeah, but it does have a little, some of the elements of your preparedness kit that
Right.
Pete was talking about earlier. Just beefed up a little bit because you might be doing some additional items like moving a piece of wood or that sort of thing. So we have the heavy duty gloves in there.
Right.
You know.
The hard hat. Who
Yeah.
thinks of that?
Yeah.
Civilians don't, without that kind of training that you guys offer, I don't think about that. Even if there's still, branches falling or it's, I don't have all that stuff. I mean, I have the flashlight, I have duct tape, it's not in a kit, but having it all together.
Yes, and that, because literally, if a tornado or some sort of other no-notice event comes out, you want to be able to have that bag that you can grab and go after, you make sure you're okay, and then you make sure your family's okay, and then you can go out into the neighborhood with hopefully another CERT team member that you meet up with, and then survey the neighborhood.
So the cool thing would be to find somebody in your neighborhood and take it together.
That would be.
Yeah.
That would also be
Yeah.
good. We do have other classes that have graduated, and we are working on, building more of a team so that people have more opportunities to get to know each other. Because the classes individually know each other very well.
Right.
But the idea is to get, a class that graduated in 2014 to know our latest class in 2017, and we do additional training periodically that people can take for, to refresh skills, and meet new people.
And the classes, for example, the 2014, you may have had 2 or 3 people in your neighborhood that took that, but you weren't able to at the time. So now you have, more people in there. So by working through the team, you can get those previous graduates. You start to look at, that idea of those concentric circles, starting with your family, starting with your neighbors, starting with your neighborhood, and moving out to your community. So, it just helps to build that resiliency in the neighborhoods because you do have some skills. We talked a little bit about the utilities and down wires and things. That's another area that we cover is how to turn off safely, how to turn off electrical power or gas power, and when to do that. So it's not just knowing how to, it's knowing when to.
Knowing when to.
Because if we shut off gas, for example, prematurely for somebody, the gas company are the ones that have to come back and redo that.
Yeah, it's
so
not a simple.
just because we know how to doesn't mean we should do that all the time. We have to, so we go through and make sure that people understand that.
So how much of a time commitment is this?
Total, it's about 22 hours for the whole course. We do 8 sessions, and the sessions are about 3 hours apiece, okay? And then on generally we do it Tuesdays and Thursday evenings, and then at the end of that program, we do a Saturday morning, and the Saturday morning is about 4 hours. And during that time, you're doing the skill sets, you're demonstrating all those things you've learned again. We have previous CERT volunteers and community members that come in and act as victims, so now you have a real scenario.
That's cool, and that brings those classes together.
And they have makeup on. One of our makeup artists, Cindy, she does a fabulous job. I mean, you should see some of the wounds because
we need pictures.
It is
That's so cool.
Yeah, I'll bring you pictures next time. When you walk into that room, and I'm not going to give too much away about the scenario,
right.
but even being an emergency management person, I took the course, and it is quite overwhelming when you have people screaming for help, or you see the wounds because they don't see the people beforehand, and so you go in and you triage, who can we get out on their own, and who needs additional help. And that sort of stuff, but it's quite overwhelming, and it is a very good experience. I'm not going to say bad overwhelming. It's a shock when you go in, but then you come out of it and you're like,
and
oh
you
my
go
gosh,
like, I got through
I
that.
did it.
I can do that.
And if
I
I
did
can
it.
do it,
Yeah, if I can do it now, I could totally do this, in my own neighborhood or with my family or something if something happened, So.
And the intent is not to fail anybody. The intent is really to give people the awareness and give them the confidence to be able to do those skill sets. So it's, we work through, and if people feel uncomfortable doing something, we'll step through that and we'll make sure that we've done it. In the city of Hampton, the CERT program, we've done folks that were disabled that were in wheelchairs.
Well, see,
that
that's what
had
I was going to ask.
service
You only
dogs.
want the big brawny guys who are going to
No.
move trees?
There's
No.
a job for everybody,
There's
really.
a job for everybody.
Yes.
And then that's one of the things that we teach folks is there's a skill set there, but it's the teamwork that's really important. Because today we may be physically able to do something, tomorrow we may be part of that victim that we can't do everything we did and we're going to rely on somebody else. So we've taught for folks that were visually impaired, folks that were hearing impaired. We've done classes with sign language interpreters. We've done, we've done classes, not in Hampton, but we've taught classes to foreign students. So, and going through interpreters and that kind of stuff. So it's just a great program to just basic preparedness so that everybody has a little bit better understanding of what do you do and how to survive. The better that we can do that in the community, then the better the city of Hampton can take care of those that aren't able to do that on their own.
And Pete mentioned before, the more resilient the city becomes. So the quicker, our goal always is after a disaster, is to make sure that the city recovers quickly. Because if we get back to normal, the economy's back up and running. So the more citizens we can get that's prepared and able to go out and survey and help us, do the recovery portion of it, that's additional time that helps us recover faster. So it makes the city more resilient.
It makes sense because there are some disasters where you need a lot of help initially and then you recover pretty quickly. And then there's, Isabel, and it is a prolonged, difficult time for people, without electricity and ice and frustrated kids. School was out forever and ever. I mean, it's just, you've got to figure out how to cope. And the more skills you have, the better you're going to be. And the better you are, the more that can spread out to your neighbors. So, okay, how often do you guys teach these classes? Like, I'm ready to sign up.
Okay. We teach them normally about once a quarter.
Okay, so 4 times a year.
4 times a year. We normally try to do one in between January and March, another one, quarters. So from then on out. So we normally don't do anything in November and December
nobody
just
wants to
because
go
of
out of the house.
because of the holidays. So there's normally one in like the
we're
October
busy.
time frame or whatever.
Okay.
Yes.
So
And then
we
right
should-
before our start of hurricane season when we get really busy around here. So
That's
the
right.
August, September time frame, and that tends to be a very popular class. But disasters happen any time of year. We had a
Well, you
tornado that
found
hit
out
in
the
January
tornadoes,
a couple years ago.
You can have
So,
an
yeah.
ice storm that can be
That's true.
breaking
That's right.
tree limbs and landing on houses and
Yeah.
causing a lot of problems in the winter. So you just never know.
That's true.
Okay, well, thank you. And we're going to put up the dates for the next class and
Great.
make sure people know how they can register. And if they want to plan even farther ahead, if there isn't a class necessarily, they can check the website, get on a list.
Yes.
You guys can roll over and keep track of folks who want to help.
Yep, just contact the Office of Emergency Management. Best way to get a hold of us is emoffice@hampton.gov. You can always call 311 as well.
Right, they'll
They
keep
have
great
lots of
track.
information, and they just pass the information on to us, and we'll get you either signed up for the next course or on a list to be notified when the previous course is coming up.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. I hope we have piqued your interest and you want to volunteer and get all this cool stuff, plus a lot of cool training to help take care of yourself first, your family, and then your neighborhood to help us triage in a disaster situation. Thanks for watching.